here we go. So, welcome to the first episode of So Here's What Happened. You're here with LaNeysha. I'm also the host of Speak On It, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Carolyn. Hey, guys.
Hey. So, guys, just because this is our first episode, but we're also going to be, it's kind of special because we're going to be reviewing Avengers Infinity War, which just so many emotions and feelings and theories about that. But we kind of did want to give you guys a little introduction to what this podcast is about. So Carolyn and I are pretty much well known on Twitter for watching and reading a lot of things.
A lot.
Sometimes a lot. Sometimes I'm like, you'll recommend something to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. And then I think and then I'll recommend something to you, and I'm like, and then I ask you like maybe 2 days later, did you watch it yet? What did you think?
It's like this is what we do. Watch TV a lot.
Mm-hmm. A lot. So we thought, what's the best way to kind of like talk about everything we watched and read and like binged in a month and just do a monthly podcast. And we came up with, so here's what happened. I probably will say like, so this is what happened, or what happened was. I'm pretty, what had happened was, that just seemed too complicated to make into a show title, but that'll be the alternate show title at some point. But yeah, so we wanted to do this. I think I couldn't pick a better co-host, someone who's very well-read and well-versed in fandom and nerddom. So thank you, Carolyn, for joining me.
Thank you.
Yeah, so now that we've gushed enough and told you guys a little bit about our new show, let's get into this episode. Avengers Infinity War. Yeah, let's just take a sigh.
Sigh.
Just all right. So, what was your first thoughts?
Oh, you mean overall?
Yeah, let's do overall, because I kind of feel like we're gonna dig into this a little deeper.
Yeah.
But first thoughts, what did you think before? And then I guess first thoughts, what did you think afterwards? After you saw it?
Before, I was nervous because I had a theory for how it was gonna play out. And I showed it, I tweeted it to a couple people, and I was pretty close, but I was nervous because I was seeing everyone's reactions, but then also we all know there was the whole thing about Cap possibly dying, and I am not prepared, ready, or will ever be ready for Steve Rogers to die. No. So none of us are. So just the thought of him and the Wakandans, I'm like, if anybody gotta die, let him die. But Steve and the Wakandans need to survive. So, but then I was seeing all the reactions on Twitter, and I wasn't feeling anything. But I remember I got to the cinema, picked up my ticket, sat in my seat, and I was nervous. I'm like, why am I so nervous getting ready to watch this film? I've never been nervous watching a film, but this one I was like feeling butterflies in my stomach. And I saw another one of my Twitter buddies, my friend Alana, and we saw each other, and I went to her and I'm like, I'm so nervous, I don't understand. And she was feeling the same way too. And my sister, she was laughing, but she was nervous too. So that was before. And then at the end, I was so pissed. And like I tweeted out, I'm like, I hate Peter Quill with the fire of all the suns in the cosmos, and I still do. I've never liked that character, and by the end of Infinity War, I'm like, I loathe him. I can't stand him. Yeah, I was sad, like, with a lot of things that happened, but my overall impression is like, screw you, Peter, screw you.
Yeah, so I would agree. I've definitely had that feeling of just like nervousness before. Like it was just building up. Like we've been waiting for this for 10 years, really. 10 years of build up, and it's like we've been waiting, and we've been like speculating, and we've been like predicting what was gonna happen, who's gonna die. And I feel like maybe a month ago I made peace with like, if Cap dies, I will be okay. I'll be okay. And well, he didn't. And then I kind of went in where like, as long as M'Baku doesn't die and all of Wakanda isn't torn apart, I'm good too. Yeah. So M'Baku lived. That's good. Cap is also alive. But if I had to say if this movie met my expectations, I would say yes and no. Because I feel like I think a lot of people, because we're seeing split reviews from a lot of people on Twitter, and just like, you know, the stupid New Yorker one about like this movie doesn't stand alone on its own. Like, no, duh. There's like 20 plus movies you gotta go watch if you want to know every single thing. Like, I'm just so dumb.
Yeah, but it's a culmination, as you said, of 10 years. Like, of course they're not gonna show everything from the beginning. Like, that makes no sense. That's like you're reading an anthology series. You start reading book 10, and then you're surprised. Like, who are these people? Like, go read the first 9. They're like,
And that's kind of like the thing. And then like I said, first off, if y'all listen to this podcast is going to be a spoiler zone. We don't bite back. We don't hold our tongues. We spoil everything. And we will be
brutally honest.
Yeah.
So
we're very honest. We're going to be also, and we're going to be very brutal. So just talking about, like, okay, so everybody died except for the original Avengers.
Which was BS.
Which was BS, because we know...
Well, except for some of the Wakandans, because from what we saw, M'Baku and Okoye live. We don't know about Shuri, because the last time we saw her, she was in her lab.
I'm pretty confident in Shuri, and it's only because...
I have a theory. My sister and I were talking on the way home from the cinema. We have a theory for why that is, but we can get back into that later. But yeah, when I saw my sister, and we were like, my sister was like, is that the original cast? I'm like... Pretty much, which is BS.
Yep, pretty much all the original cast is alive, and it's not... I get it, because, there's going to be that shot in part 2 where it's all of them fighting together again like they did the first time in Avengers 1. Like in the first Avengers movie.
Who knows, right? Because none of the trailers for all of the... One thing I will say for them, for this set of trailers, like everything we saw in the trailers, like 95% of it, was all of them were complete red herrings. Like only 5% of what we saw in the trailers actually happened in the way we thought it was going to happen. So anything that we see for Infinity War Part 4, I'm going to be like, I ain't believing nothing you showing me.
Exactly. We can't, and then we've known this for superhero movies for a long time now. It's like you cannot trust the trailers. You cannot try to piece the plot together, because it can go anywhere and people can edit however they want. I like it now more that studios are doing this, because it's like when they did Batman v Superman and they basically told us the whole plot before the movie, like, because they literally edited everything in the plot of the movie, and I'm like, well, I'm like, this takes away the good parts. Like I like certain things, but like you really took away like the stuff that you could have held. Like we didn't need to see Doomsday, and similar to this one where we were like, okay, so we're gonna see Hulk running with everybody in the charge, and then we find out like Bruce having some issues with Hulk. They not communicating on the same wavelength.
I actually enjoy that.
And then yeah, I did enjoy that, because Hulk is becoming more... I feel like he doesn't want to be like a tool, or maybe he's scared of Thanos. Maybe he's actually having a fear, and Hulk has never had to be afraid of anybody, so it's like, oh shit, this is scary.
Yeah.
But one quick thing before we go any deeper, I just gotta say 2 things. Fuck Star-Lord, and fuck Vision, and Wanda.
The 2 of them. Oh my God.
I was tired.
I was listening.
Both relationships were trash. I felt nothing. I felt nothing from anybody's relationship. Like their motivation to oh my God, you're not worth risking the entire humanity. I'm like, wait, this one robot man who's not even that good looking is worth risking half of humanity?
Not even humanity, it's the universe. A lot of people I'm like, it's not just Earth, it was literally the universe, right? So like when he snaps the glove, it affects the entire universe. I'm like, biatch. I'm like, Wanda, like the man is ready to die. Let him freaking go. Like no, I was like, that had me so, I was in the cinema. And and I'll be honest, I saw the cinema I was with was predominantly white people. There was a black couple sitting next to my sister and I, and there were a couple, I think there's one black guy behind me, and I was like trying not to talk too much, because here in Toronto, like a lot of these, depending on what cinema you're in, like the people are very reserved. They're sitting, I'm like, but I was talking, and I'm like, I was telling myself, I wish I was either in Scarborough, where like it's an experience to watch a film in the theater close to me, or if it was home in Barbados, because I can assure you everyone would have been cussing and throughout the whole movie, and I was restraining myself so much, because I could not believe. I was like, what the hell, chick? Like, take the friggin' Infinity Stone on his damn forehead, like kiss him and say goodbye and let him go. You've only known him like let me calm down.
I think...
Calm down.
No, it's fine, because get it out, because I'm angry. At both relationships we were given in this movie, I was just like, if somebody's writing fan fiction of either of them, I'm tired. I used to actually like Star-Lord, too. I used to actually kind of like... I'm like, okay, It's more like, you know how people like Deadpool because he's an asshole.
The thing is, to me, is that Deadpool is entertaining. I don't find Peter Quill entertaining. And the other thing is...
Oh, no, he's not entertaining.
And the thing is Deadpool actually listens to suggestions. Mm-hmm. Quill doesn't listen to anybody.
And that is what made me so tired of him. I'm just like, you know what? Before I just thought, like, I enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy just because, like, this is a fun time and everybody's an asshole. That's the whole brand. Like, they're all kind of horrible people. Gamora's kind of just like maybe not the worst one in the whole bunch.
She, with her experience, like, you can understand and like stuff, but like,
yeah, exactly. But everybody else, like, their whole brand is like, we are not so good people that do good things occasionally. And, like, yes, okay, I get that. But I am tired of man-children characters, and that is Peter Quill to a T. Because here's my biggest issue. Why the hell were you talking shit to Thanos while Mantis was doing all the work, struggling to keep him under? And then, why wasn't you helping with the glove, bro? I mean, I get it. Because we're going to get into it when we get to theories.
I'm like, you don't deserve that. You don't deserve that righteous anger, Peter, because you promised. I was literally in my head as it was leading up. True. I was like, don't you dare. Because I was like, don't you dare do it, Peter. Don't you friggin' dare. Mm-hmm. And my sister, normally she was like making fun of me. She was like, shh. But when he did it, she was like, this is some bull. And I had to stop her and be like, shush. But even she was like, this is some bullshit. I'm like, what am I seeing? Yep. That's why I was like, I hate him. I went from dislike to straight up hate for Peter Quill.
Yeah. We could have this whole episode could be us dragging Peter and just being upset. Because it's like, yeah, he did promise and all that, but we knew he wasn't going to kill her. Like, so that part for me, I was just like, I'm already past that part. What I'm mad about is you weren't helping Spider-Man and Iron Man get the glove off. You came up and you started talking mad shit, asking where Gamora was. Had you just gotten the glove back, maybe you could have snapped your fingers, which probably he couldn't, because I got another theory about that glove. You could have helped. You could have revived Gamora. But point is, your dumb ass is freaking out, asking where you won't even call her your girlfriend, and you freaking out and asking and acting all mad and everything. I'm just like, I'm so tired of this, and I've seen it twice. So I saw the movie twice.
I was thinking of seeing it tomorrow because I have some. I have a couple ideas for some articles, but whew, girl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now that we've kind of got our rage out about Peter and because I don't really have anything against Gamora.
No, I kind of like
her. She served her purpose. I liked her in this episode. This is probably the most development we've ever seen her get in any of the movies. That being said, this was totally a Thanos and Gamora movie. Because the whole pacing was just very like obviously with a movie with a cast this size, the pacing is going to be different. We're not going to get the same story as we got with Black Panther or with any of the Iron Men. And I hate that when people complain about movies like this, they're upset because they're like, oh, it just moved too fast and they didn't spend enough time here with this person and here with that person. Like, it's a cast with like 20 people, and you can't spend the amount of time we gave like Peter Parker in Homecoming to like, I guess, rise to the occasion. Like, and sometimes characters are going to feel like they're acting out of whack. So I just feel like I'm kind of over people being like, oh, it doesn't make sense. The pacing of the movie was off. And da-da-da-da-da. And like, just basically arguing for arguing's sake about like why they didn't like it. Just say you didn't like it if you didn't like it. But when there's actual valid reasons I've heard from people like why they didn't like it, I'm like, I totally get it. I'm just saying, for me, we'll talk about rankings later. But yeah, now that we've talked about Vision and Wanda and Peter, like the things we don't like. So yeah, let's go to that. Like, I feel like those are all the things I don't like about this movie, and it's only because they acted stupidly.
So many stupid decisions, and I'll tell you where the first one started. Mm-hmm. The first bad decision was when Vision and Wanda were fighting the Dark Lords.
Yeah,
it's not them.
The Black Order?
Yeah, the Black Order, sorry. I keep thinking of them as the Dark Lords in my head, but it's the Black Order.
I know it's I know like one of their names is Proxima Midnight.
That's the
female looking one.
The other the mistake, and I think it was the apart from Peter and a couple other things, the most detrimental mistake was Natasha not killing them. Where she said,
God,
I'm not going to kill you, and you let them go. I'm like, bitch, this is a war. How do you mean I'm not going to kill you? Like, these are the people who brought the Chitauri. How are you going to let them go? And I'm like, those were his two strongest fighters, and you let them go.
Yep.
What the hell did you... I'm like, from then on, I'm like, Natasha can die. Because that was literally, and I think Cap was there too, right? I'm like, why would you let them go? Why not at least capture them and try to figure out what they're doing there? Like, you see them fighting Wanda and Vision, and you're gonna say I'm not gonna kill you? Why? Like, so much shit could have been avoided if they had killed them like right then and there.
Because here's my thing. It's kind of like the uncanny valley. Like, here's my, like, you know, like people kind of like, the more human something looks, the more likely people feel like, they don't really want to do it. They don't want to cause harm, or is it like you get different emotions the more human like something is?
But that was dumb on the writer's part, because that's something that should have done. Because first thing first, Natasha is a mercenary. She's a spy, like killing people like that. Especially when you see them fighting your strongest fighters, you're gonna let them, like, even if you're not gonna kill them immediately, like capture them and try to figure out what they're doing there. What do you want? Especially and the reason they're there is because they saw what happened in New York. Again,
exactly, because y'all had no problems killing in New York, but you got a problem killing now. I mean, like, I agree with you. Why didn't y'all try to capture them? And then if they escape, they're not gonna excuse it.
They didn't try that. I'm like, from that moment, I was like, I can see some BS coming on the line, because to me that was the biggest plot hole of the entire movie, and that allowed everything that happened to happen. At least the way that it did.
Yep. I mean, like, there's other things about that where it's just like, how did Cap know y'all was in Scotland? He got the call. He got the call from... So that makes sense. He got the call and he went looking for them, which is fine. I get that. It's just like, y'all really could have just, like, taken out two of the biggest threats had you just killed them. But fine. Okay. I'm going to excuse it on the fact, like you said, like, they needed the plot to move forward. And, you know, that maybe they're doing the whole, like, oh, we're heroes, we don't kill. I'm like, y'all have killed plenty.
And, and this is a war starting. This is, like, intergalactic levels war, like... Yeah, no.
We don't have time. We don't have time to pull punches. Like, y'all can't be doing second chances. And, like, Thor has the right idea. Thor, he knows. So, real quick, I pray that Valkyrie is still alive. And I say that because she is. And I say that because even Thor's like, he killed half my people. I'm like, so Valkyrie must be with the other half. Cool. I'm good. Did you have any feelings about Loki dying?
I hurt for Loki, but what made me accept his death is how it went about, because I remember when I had created my thread when I first saw the first trailer where he was like, and he was given the Tesseract to Thanos, and people were like, oh, Loki's a betrayer, and even then I'm like, Loki, what are you doing? But then I thought about it, Loki has progressed so much, I immediately thought he's doing it to sacrifice, he's doing it as to think that Thanos is gonna spare his people if he gives him the Tesseract. So, like, I kind of knew that was going to happen, but his death was noble in a sense because he acknowledged that he's Odin's son, right? For me, that broke me. I was like, and the way he looked at Thor and the way Thor was looking at him, it was like... okay.
I will say, I always thought if Loki was going to die, it was going to be in a Thor movie. I will say this is probably the best way for Loki to go if he's actually really dead. And I say that actually really dead part because for all we know, Loki always got a trick up his sleeves, but I don't know. He might be dead.
I knew he was gonna die, but the reason I don't think that he is dead is because of something that he said. And when he called himself Odin's son, and the way he was looking at Thor, and when he tried to stab Thanos, I'm like, Loki is a trickster himself. Like, he anticipates people's movements long before they're gonna do it. I'm like, he knew that Thanos was gonna take that knife from him, because, like, you know what I mean? I would not be surprised if he projected himself somewhere else before he died.
And I agree, because Loki does have that ability where he can, like, transport himself, right?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Because we've seen it before. So I'm in the camp of Loki is probably one of the ones who isn't really dead. Now, who is really dead? Heimdall. Rest in peace. It did too, because I'm like, of course, one of the first ones to die, the black man that we've one of the first black characters. Pissed. But Idris is happy. Idris is happy to be done. No, I
don't mind. My problem is, and like I was talking to someone about this, and like I have a problem with the way certain people's death was portrayed and it was shown, as in visually shot. I found they held visuals very long on certain people's death. Heimdall, we saw him get stabbed, and then they held a shot where the guy pulled the staff out of his chest, and to me, I was like, did you really need to show that? He could have been taught. We could have seen Thor and Thanos talking, and in the background, we could have heard him pull the thing out of his chest. We didn't need to see it. And for me, I was like, that set me up for a lot of shit that was going to come. And I'm like, this is where I have a lot of my problems with this film. Because, and I told my sister, you can tell when white people direct certain films to when people of color direct. Yeah. There's a vast difference to how death was portrayed in Black Panther to Infinity War.
That's a good point.
Right?
That
and
is
it
true.
was like, so a lot of things pissed me off about this film. I'm like, we'll get into that some more. But yeah.
Yeah. So going from off of that, let's talk about our favorite parts.
Yes.
Do you have any favorite parts, or are you just
No, I have some really good parts. I will say the visual effects were spectacular. I didn't get to see in IMAX. I saw it in AVX, but like the visual effects were spectacular. I love Bruce and that whole thing with Bruce and Hulk, because it shows that Hulk really isn't mindless, that he does make choices and he knows what he's doing, and he like I like that we're seeing Bruce interacting more with Hulk, because he's like addressing him. You know what I mean? Like they're like having that conversation, and I really enjoy that. And Thor, I love Thor. I'm like, Chris Hemsworth is the GOAT. Like his progression as a character from the first Thor movie to now, he's so fully embodied and he's so fully fleshed out, and he knows who he is as an individual. And like he was able to show his emotions. And I'm like, yes, you're angry and you're sad. And when he was like, I have nothing left to lose, I'm like, you know what? It's a sad thing, but I'm like, that's who that character is. He is like, I will fight to the bitter end. And so I love his progression. And who else? And I really like Okoye. We didn't get much of her, but the looks, the Night Courier does such a good job with her expressions. And when I saw there's a look where she looked at the Hulk when he was like trying to get up, that killed me, because there's a look that she does with Michonne that's almost exact same thing, and I'm like, but I love those little moments of humor, and the humor was really good.
Yes, I will agree. They did stuff in a lot of jokes in this one, and I think it's because like we gotta make this light and funny because it's gonna get dark, which I think was appreciated for a lot of things. Like the quips, I like them. Going just back to Thor real quick. So since Thor Ragnarok, I have become like, yes, Thor is one of my favorites, because he is just like we said, Chris Hemsworth is finally being allowed to show his acting ability with this character after 2 movies that did okay in the box office, but really we always be like, no, it always felt like Thor was being held back, or he was being restricted, like what Taika. I'm gonna mess up this man's name. Thank you. This is why you're a great co-host. What he did with Thor and Thor Ragnarok is, I just felt like he did a great job of bringing all of the mythology of Asgard and finally showing that Thor has grown as a man. He is no longer, he does reckless things still, but he does reckless things for the sake of others and to protect others. Like he came up with the plan. He wasn't going, old Thor from like the first movie would have woken up and be like, okay, we gotta go fight Thanos again. But new Thor, he got up, he's like, I know what I gotta do. I gotta go to the dwarves. I gotta go to that star and gotta get gotta get a weapon that can kill Thanos. I was like, look at Thor. Look at him coming up with plans. He proactive, coming up with plans and being a man of action, and just like not being reckless and diving into like head first into a fight, because he knew he wasn't strong enough, even though he's like embraced the full strength of his powers now, but he knows he doesn't have the a power that can match Thanos on his own, which again, that's a big step for Thor to have to acknowledge, is that he is not the strongest there is, as he is without a weapon that can harm Thanos. And I was just like, yeah, because what we saw in Thor Ragnarok, even when he tapped into his full powers, he couldn't even beat Hela. So it's just him being more aware of himself is very pleasing to see in the movies, because we're still seeing growth throughout all these series. So I love that. I loved seeing Tony be annoyed by other people that are like him. So Space Tony, aka Star-Lord, and Wizard Tony, aka Doctor Strange. So it was nice to see. It was nice to see him get a dose of his own medicine, especially more so with Peter, with Quill. Because Quill reminds me of old Tony, of just like, God, you don't listen to anybody. You just dive head first, and you want to come up with a plan, and you don't want to take into effect like what somebody is telling you. And Peter and I feel like in that moment, Tony was thinking to himself internally, like, damn it, I used to be just like him. And whereas Doctor Strange is kind of like a more mature Tony, where it's like, yeah, he was very full of himself and he knows all the things. He's like, and yeah, he has the right to be, because he has the time stone and he can travel through time. But it's more like those are two forms of the same. They're two sides of the same coin, and they're clashing on things. But one more thing I did like a lot. I have more respect for Doctor Strange.
Yes.
This movie makes me want to go watch Doctor Strange again, because I will watch it again for the visuals, but also because like you see that, I guess calling him Wizard Tony is a bit of an insult, but I will say that Doctor Strange watching Doctor Strange now after watching Infinity Wars would be more enjoyable to me now. And it's because, like, wow, Doctor Strange really is more confident in himself in this movie, but he also is, what's the word? He just showed out. Like, he showcased his powers, and he was able to kind of like take on the responsibility, and he knew like what his purpose was. So, yeah. And then, of course, yes, going back to Wakanda was my favorite part. Just getting to see everybody, even though it was a glimpse, and even though, like, half the city is destroyed, and, you know, just seeing Shuri talk to Banner and telling him, like, why didn't you think about doing this? That did give me joy. So, like, all the little shade from Shuri and Okoye gave me joy. So, but I need to know if everybody in Wakanda is okay. Like, all of our faves.
But the thing is with, going back to Thor, what I really appreciate about Thor and what the Russos, I think they learned from Taika, is showing his intelligence. Because Thor is a very intelligent person, and in the first 3 films, like the first two films. Which one? Thor Ragnarok was number 3. So the first 2 films, we didn't get to see how smart he is. Right? Like, as he said, he's 1,500 years old. Like, he's not an idiot. He learned things. Yeah. So, like, I like, in Thor Ragnarok, we got to see him express, like, he talked about theories and stuff. And I'm like, he knows. He's a genius. And then in Infinity War, when he was able to understand Groot, and Rocket was like, you understand? He's like, yeah, they I think he said that Groot's people, like his race, they were a sect of people on Asgard, and I think they were like, I can't remember the term, but I'm assuming they were like elders, right?
Oh yeah, they said they taught it as an elective, and I was like, they finally referenced like Groot's actual people like race, which I was just like, I can't remember. But like just like
but I was glad that they did that, because it shows that he's intelligent and he's smart, right? So I want to see that in more of the films. Like, I want to see him show his intelligence, right? So I really appreciated it. And with Strange, I liked him in Infinity War. I did not like his attitude in Doctor Strange, because he was arrogant, he was a jerk, and I didn't like him. And this one, he was still arrogant in a sense in that he knew what he was capable of and he knew what he needed to do, but he was more relatable, he was more relaxed. Like I told someone, I think Benedict was that because Benedict was more relaxed in the role, like he knew who Doctor Strange was as a character, so he was able to to like relax into him more, so he wasn't stiff and he wasn't like, you know, like snobbish. Yes. He was cracking jokes. Yeah. And like even the little thing where the little scene he was talking with Wong and they were talking about their favorite Ben and Jerry's ice cream. I'm like, I like this this version of Doctor Strange. Yeah. I like him interacting.
Him being more human.
Right? So I agree with
him being more human and not feeling like he has the weight of the world or like whatever. Because like I was never a big Doctor Strange fan. I've just always understood like, yeah, he's like Magic Tony. And he's also a doctor, so he is very, very smart. But I agree, like in Doctor Strange, he is very full of himself, but I do like the whole transition in that movie of him having to be humbled. I'm very big on like characters being humbled because that's how you grow. You can't like, and speaking of being humbled, Tony got humbled the hell out of him in that fight with Thanos. Like, he did well. He drew blood, but man, did he get humbled when he got knocked the hell out a few times. But we're not gonna go into all that. We kind of like to have touched on it, but yeah. Oh, and then like you said, of course, like the whole seeing Hulk actually have a personality, like we saw him on Thor Ragnarok. I like that they didn't erase that. I like that we are still knowing that Hulk has a personality and he has his own identity separate from Banner. And I think it's important that people understand that, because I think it's always been said that it's not that Bruce becomes the Hulk, it's that the Hulk is this thing inside of him and it comes out. Like, he's just the host of it. And I think people, it's like when people talk about, is Bruce Wayne Batman or is Batman Bruce Wayne? Where it's like you separate Hulk and Banner completely because they have their own identities, and I like that Hulk didn't get erased, even though I did want to see him fight. Although we know if Hulk and Thor teamed up, it would have been over. I'm pretty confident that if they had worked together, they could have done some being prepared now after the ship was ambushed. I think they could have taken Thanos. I
have a problem with the fight with Thanos, in that I think Hulk got beat way too quick. That fight should have been way more brutal than it was, and it should have been way longer. Yeah. Well, it could have been at least a full 2 minutes of fight scene, but it could have been way more brutal than what we saw. When I saw it, I was like, that was quick, right? Oh.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because we're supposed to accept that Thanos is this well-trained warrior I get it that Thanos is supposed to be like this very like killing machine who like is in control of his body, whereas the Hulk is like this raging like not murderous all the time, but like just this raging ball of fury that cannot be stopped. Because like, but that's what he is in like the cartoons and the comics, where like if you let the Hulk rage out, like let him, he doesn't have a max. He keeps going. Like there is no limit to Hulk in his strength and his fury. If he is really mad, he just keeps getting stronger and angrier. Just, like, gives up. And he's like,
I'm tired now. I'm done.
Yeah, and then like when he chooses when he's done, so it's kind of like but what was it? Oh, last thing I didn't like, and then we'll move on to the next section. We'll see if you don't have anything else. Then we'll move on to the next section. I did not like how Thanos was portrayed as. And I only say this as I don't like the idea of them making us sympathize with a mass murderer. I don't sympathize
with him at all, because all I saw, and this is where I said this was my biggest problem with this film, and with the MCU, and it's a trend that I've noticed. I did not sympathize with Thanos because he's freaking Hitler. He's Hitler.
But that's the thing. Like, it's like
his reasoning. Like I was explaining on Twitter, I'm like, he's not sympathetic. Like, the best villain is one that you can sympathize with, or the one that you can see where they're coming from, right? Like with Killmonger, this is what I will maintain. I don't care what the fanboys say. Killmonger is a better villain, not because he's more well written, but because his train of thought, I got. And I said it was because it's related to the black diaspora. As a black person, I could see where he's coming from, because it kind of makes sense. But he's still a jerk, and his ideology was screwed, because like you can't justify killing a whole bunch of people to like, no, that's not how it works. With Thanos, to me, his justification wasn't enough. He's like, okay, because he from the beginning, he was determining. He put himself in God position of, I think the way to save my planet is to kill off half the population. And see, I was right. But bitch, you don't know that. You don't know what could have happened. Like they could have. You don't know that. Which is what Gamora said. Gamora said you don't know what could have happened. You became the executioner because you thought that that's what you were doing. I'm like, you're not sympathetic because you're an asshole. I don't really care. But I'm like, that's what you are. I'm like, you're friggin' Hitler blown up to proportions and dyed purple. And I'm like, no, like I can't stand those kind of and I know someone will say, oh, it's a show, but I'm like, it's entertainment, but you need to be careful with how you're portraying certain things, especially when it comes to genocide and ethnic cleansing, because that's what he was talking about. And I'm like,
yes,
no, I'm like, and then the part that really got me with him is when the whole thing about sacrifice a soul that you love to get the soul stone, and he killed Gamora. I'm like, bitch, no. Ooh. You should have sacrificed yourself and come back. Because I felt if he had killed, I'm like, if he had thrown himself off the precipice, he would have probably come back. Because I'm like, the one thing you love most is yourself. You don't love, he did not, anyone that, like, that's a typical abuser tactic right there. I beat you. I love you, but you made me do it. I do this to you because I love you. I'm killing you because I love you. Screw this shit, because I was ready to leave at that point in time. My sister had to hold my hand because it was actually gonna leave. I was like, nah, Dre, because that's shit that men do to women all the time.
Yes.
I'm like, and then I'm like, no, I'm like, that crap didn't fly with me. And I'm like, the Russos need to go and have a sit down with some women. For sure. Because like that was not okay to me at all. I'm like, no. He could have sacrificed I'm like, nope. Which is also why why I'm so angry at Peter. Because his weakness put her in that position. And
Absolutely.
I'm like, that's why I'm like, the male characters in this film, a lot of them were extremely weak and they're not well written. And like, no, Thanos is like, Peter's weak as hell. Girl, no, that pissed me off. I was like, no. And then,
you're not alone.
And then they focus, and and that's why I was saying my other problem with this film is how they portrayed a lot of deaths. They focused the camera right on her, and they held it really long. I'm like, why are you showing me her broken body on the ground? Why?
Yeah, this isn't triggering for anybody. I mean, I don't know if it's triggering, but you know what I mean. Like, we don't need to be stuck on it.
They didn't need to hold a shot. We know she's dead. 2 seconds and that's it. But they held it sustained. I'm like, why? To show what? We know she's dead.
Yeah. So, we basically are on the same page with that one, because here's the thing. I don't like when they want me to sympathize. And I say this because, like you said, I didn't sympathize with them either, but you can tell that they want the masses, the audience, they want the audience to sympathize with them. Like, oh, he's doing it because he's trying to save the world. Like, but like, are y'all realizing that he did this? He didn't just do this to Titan. He didn't just do this to his home planet.
It's the entire universe.
He did it to the universe. That's how he got Gamora. Like, he killed half the people on the planet and then left. That's what he does. He kills half the people and then leaves and goes to another one. And like, his whole reasoning is like, well, this is way the children who are born from this point on can live. But I'm like, but you had to kill millions of people in order to do this. Instead, why not put your resources towards making more food?
I'm like, you got this gauntlet that can get rid of half the universe. How about you help expand the universe, maybe? How about you help crops?
Make a planet bigger.
Like, you could produce crops. Like, your whole thing is, instead of creating your destruction, like, you're like, no. Right.
I want to talk to Thanos now, and I just want to be like, so instead of killing everybody, what if you made double everything?
Thank you. Help them with resources.
Just double everything.
No,
But it's just easier to kill people. Yeah, just kill everybody. But and then the other part is, I like the story of Thanos where he is just killing people for the sake of wooing and for Lady Death in the MCU. Yeah, because and the funny thing about it is, Lady Death could give a damn. She don't like him like that. Like, she prefers Deadpool. And I think that's the funniest thing is, like, you trying to do all this and kill all these people for this woman who don't even want you. That's the funny thing. I would have loved that. And for that split second that we saw, we know that it is now Red Skull, which, by the way, I am right. I have been right for the last 10 years. I have always said that Red Skull was not dead.
No, because we never saw him dead. It's a standard MCU thing. Is like, if we don't see them die, they end dead, which is what I think Killmonger is alive. I just need to know where he is. Probably is.
In the sea, where Namor will find him, and maybe that'll be the way they open up that. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of ways that can go. But, yeah, now that we've gotten that finally out about Thanos, ooh, that just
bothered
really,
me so much.
That hurts me. It bothered me, and it's because, he's still threatening, and everybody's still fearing him, but, don't try to make me sympathize. And it's like on Man in the High Castle.
I wonder if they were trying to do the whole thing with, Jacob and Isaac from the Bible, where God asked Jacob to sacrifice Isaac. But the difference is that God asked him, and and yes, Jacob was going to sacrifice Isaac. But the thing is Jacob didn't say, I'm doing this because I love you. He's like, I'm doing this because I'm trusting that something. You know what I mean? And even then, God provided a ram in the thicket. Right? He didn't kill him.
Yeah. See, that would make more sense. And I think maybe that was their whole thing for, the imagery of it. Because it wasn't like he just killed her. It's like, you took her to the mountaintop. That's just biblical references. And then, I guess you could say, this is the reverse situation where the angel, being technically a dark angel, Red Skull, appears and tells him to go ahead and do it instead of intervening, which is just I know it's emotional with that scene where you see her fighting back and you see her trying to do her best, and then she was even going to kill herself.
Right? And I'm that's what an abuser was. So that's why I say they're trying to make it biblical thing, but I'm the reason there's a thing is because God provided an alternate sacrifice. He gave the ram, but then also the other person that you have there was a flipping Nazi. Was another man who was a Nazi, who was all about ethnic cleansing. Who agrees with that kind of ideology. I'm so you got two men who agree with abuse and murder and killing, sending a young woman to her death for their own gain. I'm nah, screw this shit. I was ready to get up and walk. I was ooh, girl, that makes me so hot just thinking about. I'm this is where our fundamental problem that the MCU has with women and how it treats women, and that was big. That scene was a real. That was I was. But going on.
So. That took a lot out of me, and it's not emotionally. I was just well, damn it, we know you gonna die, girl. We knew, I knew she was gonna die when it's just when she was just alone with Thanos and everything. I'm well, you're gonna die. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know if it's because you're gonna rebel. But then when we realized it's because of the Soul Stone, oh, she's gonna die for that stone.
I actually thought the stone was inside of her.
See, for a split second, I think everybody kept on the soul is inside of somebody, the soul stone is somewhere, but then I'm just no, I don't think she's too smart, I think, to ever have it on her person, unless she never intended to go near Thanos again. But that's why
she was always running from him, right? And my other thing is, my other thing with Gamora, and I'm she was the sacrificial lamb in this film, and because Peter failed her, she wanted to kill herself, and that was taken from her. Right? And I hate that. I'm so she didn't even have her own agency in how she died. She had to die the most painful, terrifying death. Because two men, the two most important men in her life, were trash.
Yep. Agreed. Even though, and then it's all in disguise of love.
Oh, Peter didn't kill her because he loved her.
All disguise of love.
Bitch, you killed her, but you didn't kill her because you're weak. Because if you knew who Thanos, he knew who Thanos was from the beginning, because he knew Gamora told him, Nebula told him, Drax kept telling him who Thanos was, and you didn't do it. I'm you didn't even try. If he had fired the gun, if he was at the last minute and pulled it away and it fell up and shot up in it, I could understand that. Right? I'm he didn't even pull it. I'm you didn't even try, Peter. You knew who this man is, and then you want to get it all friggin' on me to get it all to pretend you're upset because Thanos did what you knew he would do. Nah, he was probably doing it because he knew he was guilty and he was taking on Thanos. But I'm I don't got time for your shit, Peter. You're trash, and I don't want to see you ever again. I probably might even watch the third Guardians movie because his ass might be in it. No.
Agreed. But yeah, so just fuck Peter and fuck Thanos for forever. I'll wrap that part up by saying that. Oh, Envision it and Wanda.
I think they kind of thing, because Wanda at the end, she realized, and she was doing it. She was actively doing it.
But she took forever. She took forever. And how the hell is she holding off Thanos with one hand?
That's... No, the thing is like I was doing a lot of research. I was doing some research like a while ago. From the moment she, this was like last year, and I was reading up. I'm like, she's supposed to be one of the most powerful beings in comic canon, right? And the problem why that scene may seem implausible is because the MCU has not done enough to build up her powers to what they should be. So to a lot of people, they'll be like, how is she, as you said, how is she doing this? I'm like, because the writers have not given her the power that she has, right? They haven't shown her, they haven't shown her potential. And I'm like, so that's why Okoye said, why was she up there all this time? I'm like, I want to know too, Okoye. Her ass has been on the ground, like helping hold back the people and set up there. You ain't doing nothing to help Shuri right now. Like, go and fight, right? But as I said, that's a fault on the writers, and like they don't utilize their female characters very well. And Wanda is a big failing, and like her holding him back. I'm like, this is what she can do. Like, this is what she's capable of, and they should have been doing it from the beginning of the film, right?
Yep.
And I'm like,
you're right. I mean, but you know, they have a lot of studios have that problem. It's like with the Last Jedi, and we see Leia actually does have Jedi powers at the last. Like, I mean, like that was nice to see, but I'm like, where the hell was that in the last movie? But I get it, writing and everything, so it's fine. I'm not going to dwell on it because I feel like we could rant all day about like just how people portray powerful women and they don't let them have their full potential. But anywho's, let's talk about theories. So theory number one for me, I feel like they are on track with what Doctor Strange saw, because he said he saw 14 million whatever scenarios where they fought Thanos and they only won one time. So that one time has to include where Tony is alive still, because he knows they can't win without Tony being alive. So it seemed like in that final fight with Doctor Strange, he was ready to let Thanos kill him.
Who, Tony?
Let him kill himself. Like, Doctor Strange was okay with dying because he didn't have the stone on him. But then the other part was he didn't tell Peter. He didn't tell
any of them, and it was a smart move because it would have thrown off the plan.
Yes.
And like my theory from the beginning was because my sister, she, for some reason, she went on the site and read a spoiler review, but I think the spoiler review is wrong because she was wrong. Right? But she didn't tell me what the theory was. She didn't tell me what she think, but she was like, so I guessed. So she made me guess. She's like, okay, can you guess what happened, right? And so my theory was, okay, everyone is going to bite the dust. I meant like everyone was going to bite the dust. And then in part 2, Infinity War part 2, we would have seen Doctor Strange going back in time, running loops, trying to figure out how he was gonna fix the situation, and then and then in one of those loops, the only way they could have won is if he went back to the 80s and found Carol Danvers and warned her about what was going to happen. Because my whole thing is, I think what they did with the Doctor Strange film is showing him working out situations and scenarios, that was the setup for us to believe and see what he can do. Because if they did it suddenly in like, for instance, in part in Infinity War Part 2, if they just did it, we would be like, can he? But because they set it up in Doctor Strange film, we could buy into it easier. So that was my theory. And so then then for Infinity War Part 4 would be them finding, I said Infinity War Part 4, but Avengers 4, it would be them finally taking the fight to Thanos. Because I could remember ending off with him on some planet with birds singing and looking at trees. I'm like, screw that. But I'm thinking that was my theory, that they were all going to die. But in one of the scenarios, he went back to the 80s to get Carol Danvers.
Yeah. Okay. I like that one. I like that one for sure. But I see we're both pretty much in agreement that like we know that Doctor Strange did not reveal too much of the future to them, because he knows Tony or somebody would have acted differently. I
think Tony would have followed the plan. But when you have like Peter, because both Peters are so flipping impulsive, he was like, nah, I can't tell anyone, and it makes sense.
Which is smart because, again, I don't think I wouldn't even trust Tony with the future, because Tony would try to alter it to save more people or to make things happen differently. And they only have one shot. And when he said it was the only way, I'm like, you're right. We are in the end game. It is the only way. Tony has to be alive in order for them to stop Thanos, which leads me to the next theory. So the big speculation is who's going to die. Like, what big Avenger character will die and stay dead? I don't know for sure. I'm not that confident in it actually being Tony, just because all this talk about him and Pepper being married and having children. So, like, if he was to die in part 2, I bet you she already pregnant. And she'll name the baby after, like, Tony Jr. But if he doesn't die, I think the whole point is it's gonna take Cap and Tony working together to, 1, stop Thanos, and 2, we know that when we saw Thanos snap his fingers with the gauntlet, and then he came back, and then we see his arm is messed up, and then the gauntlet is like basically almost concaving on itself, so it looks like it's about to fall apart. So we know that the gauntlet cannot withhold the power of all the stones at one time. It cannot, it can't hold it for a long time, because that thing ain't healing, and its arm isn't healing. So they probably got one more chance to use it at its full force to bring everybody back who died. But no normal human can withstand, because we saw with the Power Stone. They've been telling us this for years. The Power Stone is too powerful for one man, one normal being to use it. But if you got Steve, the super soldier, you got maybe Tony, or maybe Tony won't do it. Maybe Tony be the one figuring it out and how to use it. And then maybe Thor. So would it be something if they killed all of the big, I count them as the big 3, the first 3 major franchises in the MCU. But I feel like you can't kill all 3 of them.
Thor.
It just feels wrong.
Because Thor is a demigod, right? So it's he already has that natural. He withheld the power of a star. He didn't die. The star didn't kill him. And I'm for me, if anything, I'm that powered him up. I'm right? So
exactly. So that's why I don't think it'll be Thor. Thor will probably be too busy taking care of Thanos. And if he listens to Thanos like he did this time, and he cuts off his head next time,
But it's not only that. The reason why I would say I wouldn't buy Steve dying too is Steve got punched, and his head didn't cave in. It did not cave in. I'm the dude survived a full punch from Thanos, and he got back up with a headache, but he got back up. I'm I thought he was dead, but I was his head should be, because Loki's head Thor's head was getting squeezed, and we but my boy got, because Thanos, when he was because we all saw that part from the trailer where he was pushing back, and even Thanos was excuse me, but when he got a punch, what the hell? And got back up, I'm Steve is actually stronger than we've seen. I believe Steve is stronger than we know.
Steve is we've never seen him probably at his full force. I mean, there was the helicopter scene with him holding that helicopter.
Then,
there's been times.
Even then is I think the Russos was testing, because in the other films we've seen him fight against humans, right? So in that scene, the Russos were kind of I think they were pun intended, flexing their muscles to show he has the potential to do this. Yes. But now he take a punch from Thanos and pop back up. I'm you know what, Steve? If your ass dies in Infinity War Part 2, I'm going to be pissed, because it showed that you are way stronger than you intend. And because remember in Guardians of the Galaxy, when Peter, because he's half God, but the power of all of them together is what harnessed the power and distributed it. So I'm thinking if they did something like that similarly in Infinity War Part 2 with the gauntlet, where if not necessarily, if they can't make another gauntlet, because the dwarf is still there, if they can't make another gauntlet, if they did something where they're all holding the stones, but because because you have, as you said, you have that's why I said killing Wanda was a cheap shot, because she could probably have harnessed that energy. So you have Steve, you have Thor, you have Doctor Strange, you have Tony. You need 5, right? So...
Well, it's going to be, they got to find a way to bring Doctor Strange back. So everything, that kind of leads into the whole issue of we know they're not dead. And we know that basically...
I don't know how they're going to get them off.
Yeah, true. I'm like, and I don't want it, and I really don't want it to be that, like, the ending that I would hate for Infinity War Part 2 is that Thanos fixes everything.
That would be
like,
some,
I've seen the error of my ways, and I want my daughter back. I'm like, nope, I want you to die. I don't want you to die righteous death. I don't want you to learn anything.
Because even Red Skull, when he was like, he's like, I've paid the price, and his price is to be in that position. Yeah. But he still believes in it, right? Because he didn't try to say, you know what, I think you're going down the wrong path. So I think he still agreed with Thanos's kind of ideology. But he was like, this is the penance I must pay. But as you said, if they were to try to redeem him, I would be supremely pissed. Does it happen? Do you know if it happens in the comics?
I do not know, and I really need to. Steph I Will has been a great job of talking about the comics and like this whole run. I need to go ahead and just read it, but at the same time, it's like, you know, when you read something in the comics and you really want to see it happen on the screen. I've been kind of like, I decided after Infinity War Part 2, then I would read the comics and like go into like, because they could go this into so many different territories, because we don't know where they're going. It's like because we're still talking about theories here. The timeline in the MCU is everywhere. I base everything now from this point on from the point in Civil War. So we know from Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, we have no place time for it, but we know it happened before Infinity War. And then we know with like Spider-Man Homecoming, that happened a month after Civil War. And then Black Panther, we know that happened a week after Civil War.
I'm thinking Thor Ragnarok takes place in the 2 years after Civil War and before Infinity War, because that's why Thor and Bruce didn't know that Vision and Wanda were gone. They didn't know about they didn't know that Steve and Tony weren't talking, right? So Thor Ragnarok covers that too, because and also because Black Panther picks up 2 years after, picks up immediately after Civil War, right? So, but
it's like Thor has no idea who all these stranger people are, but he knows they fight on the same side. But the point I was gonna make is that Ant-Man is the next Marvel movie, and then we have Captain Marvel, and then we'll go back to Infinity War. We know Captain Marvel is going to take place in the 90s, so it's kind of prequel to everything, whereas Ant-Man, I feel like Ant-Man might end with him disappearing.
You mean into the one of the rounds? You mean into one of the rounds?
No, like how everybody else dusted away. I feel like Ant-Man's that's how it's gonna end
it's gonna be
too.
Last?
Because
okay.
I have a feeling unless something, because everything that's going on with Thanos and them, I just don't see them being like separated. However, if they do survive, and like my theory of every phase 2 and phase 3 character dying off or being dusted away is wrong, then Ant-Man may play a big role in saving everybody, or whoever, because they have to go join up.
It makes sense that he might help because of what he can do, because he can travel into like realms, right? Isn't that because that's what we saw in the first Ant-Man film, where he traveled into like between worlds? So it kind of makes sense if that's how they would actually get to Thanos, is if they find a way for him to take that. To take that thing, because he can travel through realities. And so that's what I'm saying. Exactly. So I'm saying like Infinity War has to include all of them, all of who's left, because they can't kill off Ant-Man would also be a cheap shot, because it's like it would have been too predictable. I had told my sister what they should have done is they should have never announced Black Panther getting a sequel before Infinity War came out. They should have announced it at Comic-Con, because right? So, because my sister said, okay, maybe Black Panther Part 2 is about Shuri taking up the mantle. And I'm like, that's a good point. It's a possibility, but then that would be like a really bad move on Marvel's part, because then we would have only gotten one MCU film with T'Challa, the one black male lead in control, right? Which I think maybe we will see some Shuri will eventually see some action with the mantle.
I feel like we know everybody's not gone for good. We know there's a way to bring everybody back. We know there's going to be sequels.
They're going to reset the timeline. And so so Infinity War Part 2 is probably, if the timeline isn't set back with Captain Marvel, the Infinity War Part 2 is going to be a whole new timeline.
Yeah, which again, that's the thing, because we're dealing with comic books, resetting timelines, parallel worlds, universes. This is all. Nothing is impossible. So I'm very confident in, like you said, if Ant-Man doesn't dust away, then I feel like him and Wasp, or him or Wasp, will join up with the others, and along with Carol, because maybe we'll see a part of like Captain Marvel make an appearance or a cameo in
Infinity War for Ant-Man.
Or Ant-Man. Because she's going to definitely be in part 2 of Infinity War, but we have to be introduced to her, and that was that whole setup at the end where we see the beeper. So we're going to see her movie. So we get Ant-Man, Captain Marvel, then Infinity War Part 2 in 2019. So it's kind of like we're going to be going with, I think these next 3 movies are going to be telling us a lot of how this whole thing is gonna go, and that's why I think Ant-Man and Wasp may play these big roles, working not big, but you know what I mean. They're going to lend a hand if they're not dusted away.
Because it's literally all occurring to me. If, as my theory of Strange traveling back into time to contact Carol, I'm wondering is because he tells her what's gonna happen. If in her film...
And that's why she left?
In her film, she meets up with Hank Pym.
Yes, because we know Hank was active
in the 90s
in S.H.I.E.L.D. for quite some time, and then he quit. But then how do we not know that he still kept an eye out on exceptional people with powers?
Yeah.
So that's another one. We have Hank Pym, who was around during that time. So it's all about, I feel like nothing is out of the question with these movies, and our theories all theories could be right. We could reset and see the first time that they actually do a parallel universe. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait a year, which this is my biggest problem with movies that do part 1 and part 2. I hate big movies that do that, because I hated it when they did it with Hunger Games. But I know it makes sense with this movie.
It makes sense. It's just
I just hate
waiting.
I
don't mind waiting. Because I just like coming up with theories, and so I was like 90% right because everyone didn't die. I was actually surprised they all didn't die. I was like, what? I'm like, happy you're alive.
When I was when it got to like Thanos, when he was knocking people out, and I'm like, all right, there's about 10 more minutes left in this movie, and then when we start seeing Bucky, I'm like, oh god, they're gonna erase everybody who isn't like phase 1 Marvel. And I was right. I was just like, yup, this makes sense, because we're gonna get the original Avengers, and they're gonna have to team up with hopefully whoever is left over. Maybe Ant-Man, Wasp, maybe Hawkeye will pop back up. Who knows?
My theory to Hawkeye is the reason we're not seeing him is that he works for Hank Pym as his personal security. That he works as his personal security for him, right? So I'm thinking that's why he didn't. I'm thinking that's why we're not seeing him. He after the battle, after Avengers and after Civil War, he was like, you know what? You people do not offer me enough health insurance for this. I'm gonna go work for Richard. I'm gonna go work for Hank Pym and be his personal bodyguard, and that's what I'm gonna go and do. So, which is why I think he played into Infinity War Part 2. Right?
No, I swear. And I think we talked about this before too on Twitter, and I was just like, I strongly believe Hawkeye will pop up in Ant-Man, and we'll go from there. So, and that, I think, you got any more theories? If not, we'll wrap up the theories and we'll go into the rating.
My theories. Do I have any more theories? I think the only thing I was thinking about is they should have kept off the announcement for Black Panther Part 2 until San Diego Comic-Con. Like, I know they were playing into the hype, but strategically, that to me would have been better, because then people would have really been wondering. That would have been a rush. So when I saw that, I was like, I gasped because of how it happened, because he was like, this is no place to die. And then it was like, he's gonna, I'm like, no! But that's the only thing. So those are my theories. And because we don't know anything about a Doctor Strange Part 2, that I don't think that's been announced. But it might probably get announced at San Diego Comic-Con, right? And we don't know anything about another Thor movie, which will probably get announced at San Diego Comic-Con. And so, so those are my theories. And so I had a lot that I liked, but there's a lot of things that I didn't like. And so the things that I didn't like are things that I'm focusing more on because of how bad the whole thing with Thanos and that whole love thing, like that really irks me. And
No, that's about, So same here. I think my theories are all wrapped up. I stand by the whole that we're on track with Doctor Strange's prediction, or like, his version of the timeline, that we win. And just, what was I going to say? Yeah, to wrap up, like, what I don't like, agreed. It was just, I'd rather Thanos be this murderous person for the sake of it, not really have a righteous reasoning behind it, especially when your righteous reasoning involves genocide. And I get it. His whole thing is like, but it's because it's all fair. It's rich or poor, and it's this or that. I'm like, but dude, you killing everybody. I'm not going to say I get it, because I think that's what they want us to do, is like, Thanos, you'll see he's a bad guy, but he's operating on a righteous level. I'm like, nope, we're done with him. I don't care. He'll bite the dust and his head will just get chopped off by the Stormbreaker. So that's what I don't like. I did like seeing him knock the hell out of Tony. And then like there's a bunch of other things I liked in this movie. I think it's just, again, we all had our own expectations when we addressed it. When it was building up to it. So I think some of those expectations haven't been met, and that's why so many people are divided. And this is like something that took a long time to build up. So that's why I've seen some people who are like, oh, I hate it, or like, oh, I loved it. And I'm like, it's just because like, I definitely can say I didn't hate it. I definitely can say, before I go and say anything else, let's go into the ratings part of it. So I think we're already in it. I didn't hate it either. If I had to rank it amongst the Marvel movies I love the most, it's not in my top 3.
It's not in my top 5, I can tell you that.
It's because... Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, we'd say top 5. No. And I think maybe it's because it's an incomplete story. Like, I really don't think I'll be able to give a complete rating on it until... we see part 2. And again, this gave me feeling... like when you saw... Did you see Justice League? It gave me the feeling of when you saw Justice League. Like, after I saw it, I was just like, wow, that was fast and that was over. But it's not. It's like a 2.5+ hour long movie.
For me.
But it feels like it just was like a snap. And again, it feels like a Thanos movie, but when I say like, oh, is it like the best movie Marvel has ever made? I'm like, they made a really good movie. It's tight, like it has a beginning, middle, and kind of an ending, and then it's getting you ready for what's next. So I think it's good in that regard, but again, it's not one of my favorites. I would still say it goes Black Panther, Thor Ragnarok, Captain America, Winter Soldier, and like again, this is probably like the 6th. I would rank it 6th in the Marvel MCU movies.
I probably put it the same way. I probably put it in this. Actually, not, because I put Civil War up in there too, so probably number 7 for me. And another thing is we didn't get enough of Cap.
Yes, and that is another thing, because last theory. There has to be a director's cut. And it probably won't come out until, the other movie comes out, too. But there has to be a director's cut, because there's a lot of parts we didn't see, and I don't care if it was them just, trying to distract us. But Captain America probably only had, less than 8 minutes of speaking throughout the entire movie. He did not say... He felt like a supporting character. Tony felt like a major character. And I'm just like, what is this balance? I need more Tony. I need more Cap talking. We didn't have a big moving speech from Cap I felt like we would have gotten. It's just, this isn't the way Captain America was going to go. And that's
we didn't get enough interactions between him and T'Challa. Because, that's another thing too. I'm like, where's all the scenes with him and T'Challa?
That's what I said.
Why didn't we see any scenes with them strategizing, discussing what the actual situation is? Because all we saw was T'Challa saying, oh, the problem is coming. And literally that was it. We didn't hear them making any battle plans. We didn't see them saying who these people are. We didn't see any explanation of who Thanos was to T'Challa, to Shuri, any of that. I'm like, where's the rest of it?
Yeah. So that's why I'm a firm believer there is a director's cut of this. Maybe it's gonna be 3.5 hours, maybe it's gonna be 4 hours. I'm gonna watch it because I need there to be more story and more dialogue from certain characters. And I get it why they couldn't put it all in there, but that is what was missing for me personally to say this was like one of the best movies, is that we were missing dialogue from major characters.
And his people had all the freaking dialogue. They monologue so bloody much. I'm like, shut up. Like,
I'm just like, so much talking. So much. And Thor and Tony and like the Guardians really were like the main focus, and that's why like we didn't get much dialogue from the other people. Like the ground team was their whole focus was fighting, and we're not gonna have that time with Cap until like they're recovering and regrouping and making a plan.
This film should have been a Guardians film, because there wasn't much of the Avengers to boot. Most of this happened in space. A lot of it happened because it happened on Titan, and a lot of the references were references to Guardians of the Galaxy. So this could have been a Guardians film. Because to call it Avengers Infinity War, I'm like, but is it though?
Yeah.
Is it really an Avengers film? It's more of a Guardians film.
It was Thanos. It was Thanos.
Yeah, this should have been the Guardians versus. This should have been titled Guardians versus Thanos. Like.
Yeah, truly. But I mean, like, again, we're not saying it was the worst movie. We're not saying it was a perfect movie. It's just, again, it's one of those movies where there's more build up, and you have to watch the next one. And I'm not like some people who are gonna be like, I hated it and I'm never gonna watch these again. I'm like, I'm gonna watch them again. What are y'all talking about?
Probably watching like a couple years. It's not anything that I'd be like. Yeah. If it was coming over on TV, I'm not gonna switch to watch it like I would Iron Man or Captain America. Right? I'd be like, I'd actually think about it. I'm like, do I feel like watching this right now? Probably not. Hey.
True. But like we said, I think we now that we've seen it and everything, we know that part 2 is where all of our nerves will be and all of our edges will be snatched, because that's where the real shit's gonna go down. Like, that's where somebody big will actually die.
Because that man deserves to retire on a farm with a dog and a lady and some grandkids. That's what I want to see. I want to see a time jump with him in a rocking chair on a farm with his Labrador, with his dogs running around, with him playing with grandkids.
I would be okay if the gauntlet, if he uses it, if he ends up being the one to use it, I would be completely okay with him if it aging him. But not killing him.
Aging him how far?
But like it allows him to finally age.
Okay.
It allows
but doesn't
him
he age? I think it's just that he ages like, you mean like age in cute regular time? Because he ages, but he ages like super slow. But if he's like, okay, so for instance, if by the end he ages like 20 years, so he like if he has a gray hair, a sexy beard with like some gray and some salt and pepper up in there,
like if. Like Old Man Logan.
Like Old Man Logan. And then he ages gracefully and spectacularly from there. Yes, I'd be all about that.
And he can, and then he can just rest on his farm with his dogs and I don't know. If you're looking for a woman, I'm available.
I know, right? No, he deserves happiness. Like Steve, like to kill him off would be like, to me, would be a disservice to that character. Because like he hasn't really gotten to live, right? And I know some people. I know like there are people who be saying, "Oh, but that's to show that everyone can have a happy ending." But I'm like, God damn it, if one person deserves a happy ending, it's freaking Steve Rogers.
Like, he does. Like that man is tired.
He's been through it. He's been fighting from the beginning. Like to kill him off would be like
they defrosted him. They defrosted him and put him right into another war. He deserves to rest.
Like to kill because I saw someone say, "Oh, but if he dies, he could it would end off with him seeing Peggy in the afterworld." I'm like, no. Like, do you people understand that this man has only kissed 2 women in his life? One was Peggy, and the other one was his niece. Like, no, he deserves better than that. Like, no.
That man, he deserves to
travel.
So I just need them. Yeah. And not worry about another war or another fight. He just
leave me out of it.
Oh, you know what? Just Steve. He needs, Which is why I'm happy for like Chris Evans to be doing Broadway and doing stuff he wants. Because he needs a break. He deserves to just like not have to be Captain America for the next 8 years anymore. He's perfect, but he needs his rest. So we'll prepare our feelings for that. when that movie comes out. I think it's 2019.
Yeah, because it's coming out next year.
Thank God it's not 2020. Whew, I'd be upset. Well, now that we've kind of given our long rankings, because that was not easy to like rank it or rate it, let's wrap it up. So we don't really have much. Oh yeah, there was one thing we wanted to wrap up. So we just wanted to wrap up this episode by letting you guys know what we will be consuming. That means basically what we're going to be watching and reading for the next month of May until our next episode. So if you guys are watching it along with us, you can follow along, watch the episodes. Also, don't be shy. Participate with us on Twitter if you see we're going to be tweeting about it. But Carolyn, if you want to just let the people know what are some things you're going to be watching, reading, or binging throughout the month of May? Yeah, we're in May.
Okay, so for reading, right now I'm going through the Expanse series written by James S.A. Corey, and I'm on book 6, Babylon's Ashes. And it's a great book series. It's very in-depth, like it's very detailed. The politics is very complex. The space exploration and the character developments are really, really well done. And I'm also watching the show. It shows every Sunday night at 9. I'm wrong. Every Wednesday at 9 on Space in Canada and Sci-Fi in the States. So I'm watching the show, reading the books, and then after I finish Babylon's Ashes, I'll be reading Kindred by Octavia Butler. Yeah, I'll be reading Kindred by Octavia Butler, and I'm not sure what book I'm going to read after that. I might probably get the book number 7 in the Expanse series because I'm trying to finish them before summer. That was my personal challenge. And because book 8 came out at the end of last year, which was Nemesis Games. So that's it. And for TV, I was watching Into the Balance, but my last episode that I watched will be the one that showed this Sunday night because something happened and I was like, nope, peace out, I'm done. And so I'm not sure. I've been watching a few things on Netflix. Oh, I've been also watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime. It's a comedy. Okay. It's very interesting. So that's very good. And I'm going to be binging American Gods because I haven't finished season 1.
Yes! We'll have something to talk about.
I'll be binging.
I mean, we'll have things to talk about
regardless.
I'll be
binging American Gods.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited for you to start American Gods. That was such a great show.
I started it, but I didn't finish it because Laura Moon was pissing me off.
Yeah. Oh, I get it. I know. She's a cancer. But I won't get into it. We will talk about that. That'll be one of the things we make a priority to talk about. Because I don't know if the new season will drop by the time we record again. But we can at least kind of talk about season 1 that you're catching up on together until then. So, as for me, I am currently reading... I always read manga. That's just a common thing. One of the ones that I'm constantly reading at this time is The Promised Neverland, and it is about children that grow up on an orphanage. They're being raised, and they have a caregiver named Mama. And the thing about it is, the children find out that they are actually being raised to be sold off to demons to be eaten as their food.
Man, some of these mangas are so deep, so dark.
I can't help it. I like fantasy, but then I like a dark twist of fantasy. But then the children figure out a way to fight back, and then they're learning how to like escape. I'm way into it. Like down. I'm like, oh, can you hear me now?
Is it mine?
Technical difficulties. 1 second. Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
Okay, cool. So we so that's kind of the premise of that manga, where it is that's what's going on. That's something I read all the time. I'm also reading Attack on Titan. I'm all caught up with that, so I'm just like patiently waiting for the next chapter of that to drop each month. I'm reading Mr. Miracle. That is Tom King's and Mitch Gerads' latest run. It's amazing. If you like Big Barda and Mr. Miracle from like the old,
I might start reading it because that's the film that Ava DuVernay is going to be directing for DC, right? So I probably might try and see if I can get a couple runs. But I have a while, right? Because like, the film is going to be up for probably like 2 years. So it's probably going to come in 2020.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you want a DC comic book that doesn't bring in Superman or Batman. If you just want something that's a standalone on those characters, read Mr. Miracle by Tom King. And I mean, it's amazing and it's a great time. And I love Big Barda and Mr. Miracle because they're adorable. And they're like they're this married couple that deal with the real shit, but like they're also like, they're aliens from another world that's fighting against Darkseid, and they have their own issues still. And I won't go into it too much because I feel like I could talk about it all day. So there's that. For reading, for watching things, what am I watching? Oh, I'm catching up on season 2 of Preacher. So I'm going to finish wrapping that up. I am also watching Steven Universe because I need joy and funny things in my life that they also deal with emotions. So I have to have something that balances out my dark fantasy side. So I need Steven Universe. And also for fun, I just found Craig of the Creek. It is adorable. It is cute, and I love it because it shows this little black boy, and he likes to just go to the creek with his friends, and he has adventures, and it's adorable, and his family is so just, like, authentic. Like, you can tell somebody black created this cartoon. I love it because, like, there's one part where his grandma gives him a hug, and it's like, "Ooh, you smell like outside." And I'm like, that's my Nana. So, it is such a good show, y'all. But, yeah, and then... I feel like that's about it for me. I might eventually finish up Kimmy Schmidt. I'm still on season 3 in Netflix, but I just got tired of Kimmy and I miss Titus. So I'll probably finish that up eventually. And I think that's it. But another thing is, if there's anything you guys have suggestions for us to watch or to read, don't be shy to tell us on Twitter. You can follow us at, let me just pull that up because I'm not prepared or professional. You can follow our Twitter handle for our show is at SHWH_pod. That is, so here's what happened pod. So you can hear us and you can follow us and everything. We'll let you guys we'll give all the information there about what the show is going to be about, and then we'll also keep you updated on things we're watching on the Twitter too. So just follow us and engage with us over there, and we're not shy. It's both me and Carolyn managing it, so we just look forward to trying out this new show. And so without further ado, I think that's just about everything I had to say, Carolyn. Oh, before we leave, Carolyn, do you want to let the people know where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at CarrieCNH12. And I live tweet a lot, so you'll probably be seeing tweets from me for a show that I host on Saturday nights called Saturday Night Sci-Fi. So it starts every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we do various sci-fi shows, and sometimes it's a film and sometimes it's a show. We might watch a few episodes of a show, and you're welcome to joining anytime. Sometimes we can take suggestions, and it has to be something that people in Canada and the US can watch, or if you have DVD or if it's something that's streamable online. And also I will be starting back my Nerds for Toons live tweet, so I'll be starting that back soon, so look out for announcements for that. And I like to do threads on Twitter, so I tweet a lot. People think it's weird, but I'm like, hey, my peaks are on Twitter, so that's where I am. So I tweet a lot. I tweet about shows, about film, about cultural stuff, random stuff, so you can look for myself there on Twitter. And also I'm a writer, so if there's any editors listening to this, if anyone needs anyone to live tweet films or TV shows, hit me up. A girl would like to get paid. And so yeah, that's it.
Great. And then you can find me at LA_NEY_SHA. That is LaNeysha on Twitter. And yeah, I pretty much stay over there tweeting about anime. I'm not a writer. I'm not as well versed as Carolyn is. I like just talking about things with other people and reading things by awesome writers like Carolyn. So hire her. But yeah. So that's where you guys can find us. And again, you can find the show over on Twitter also. We'll drop our links in the show notes. I think that's just... Oh, one more thing. We will be starting a Patreon soon that will help to fund this podcast, but also the other podcasts speak on it, because we feel that there's ways we can make the show better for you guys, and we would like to do that. And if one way we might be able to reward our patrons would be shouting you guys out by name on the podcast. If that's something you're interested in, let us know on Twitter. And I think that's about it. I know I say that a lot when I record, so, but we're good. So without further ado, we're going to head out, and you guys go see Avengers Infinity War, and also let us know your own thoughts when you go see it.
Thanks, bye.
Okay?
Gus beep beeps. Bye.
Bye.